She had a great family and a solid career.
She had just got that promotion.
She had a great relationship with a new boyfriend.
He was perfect for my sister.
But in the blink of an eye, everything changed.
She didn't come home.
It's my daughter. This is not like her. This is out of her character.
Was she carrying a dark secret?
She was so drawn into him like a moth to a flame.
Detectives would soon uncover a complex web of lies.
There was a sex tape that was made.
You have a man in a skeleton mask.
Love is not supposed to hurt. Love is not supposed to take someone's life.
December 14th, 2015. It's a chilly Monday morning in Detroit, Michigan, and downtown is bustling with an energy that would have been unthinkable a few years earlier.
We've been through some tough times, but we're on the uprise.
Detroit is this comeback city right now, and it's been a long time in the making.
While many are out on their morning commute, a sanitation worker in the Brightmoor area is making his rounds.
This area is a residential area. It just consists of homes, single-family homes, some vacant dwellings and vacant lots.
In front of one of these vacant houses, the sanitation worker comes across an oddly placed garbage container. As the worker attempts to roll the can, he notices it is unusually heavy.
It was obvious someone had put something more than just household garbage in there.
When the worker lifts the lid, he's met with a terrifying sight.
There is the body of a deceased female.
The worker immediately runs back to his truck to call 911.
That call comes into me. I alert my team, and we then head out to the location.
When detectives arrive to examine the body, there is little evidence to suggest just how the victim died.
There was no obvious signs of trauma at the time, but we believe we were investigating a homicide.
She obviously did not place herself inside of a trash bin.
Who was this woman? Detectives believe they know the answer.
Police had spent the last 3 days searching for a woman named Kajavia Globe.
But no one had heard from her.
Is this Kajavia Globe? And if so, what led to her tragic death? 24-year-old Kajavia Globe was part of a tight-knit family of strong women.
Kajavia was the big sister. You know, she looked out for her sister. She was very overprotected over her sister. I needed that as me being a single parent because I didn't have to worry.
Kajavia was a mother figure.
It's great. We did everything together. Couldn't have tear us apart.
She was my best friend. You could confide into Kajavia about anything.
With the support of her family, Kajavia was thriving in her professional life.
She was working at a telemarketing firm and had just been promoted to project manager.
She was a leader over there. Also, anyone coming on her, she would teach them the software and everything. So she was really excited about it.
She wasn't going to let anything or anyone prevent her from achieving the goals that she had.
She always wanted to reach for the stars. She was like, oh, I'm going to grow with this company. I'm going to advance to the fullest.
Focused on her successful career, Kajavia wasn't looking for love, but couldn't deny the chemistry she had with coworker, 37-year-old John Black.
She was a guy magnet. She was popping, fly. They will always go out on dates. He always took her to nice places, and she just was like, he treats me like a queen.
Why are you so good to me?
Because you deserve it.
After a 6-week romance, the couple had become inseparable, and John asked Kajavia to move in.
He was treating her well. She always talked about him.
She was just happy, full of joy.
However, on the night of December 11th, 2015, Kajavia's sister receives a distressing phone call from John Black.
I had just walked in the house from having dinner.
Hello?
Hello, Adriana? Yes, John. Is Xavier with you?
No, she's not. Why?
He said she didn't make it home.
She's supposed to be here hours ago.
She's not answering her phone?
No, that's why I'm calling you. She's supposed to be
It's
here like
unlike
hours
her
ago.
to not call or to be, answering the phone.
Well, look, please give me a call once you talk to her.
Will do.
Several hours pass, and there is still no word from Kajavia.
It's completely out of character for her to just go missing.
I'm calling her phone. Her sister's calling her phone. Everyone is calling her phone.
The following morning, there is still no sign of Kajavia, and her family becomes increasingly alarmed.
We waited till the sun rose, and we went to the police station.
I was sitting at my desk, and a lady and her children come in. She was very frantic, and she was upset.
Hi, how can I help you?
It's my daughter. I can't find her.
Okay, how long has she been missing?
Since last night.
Sorry, but she has
With adults, if you hadn't been missing for a certain period of time, then in some cases we don't take the missing report.
Generally speaking, when someone goes missing, police tend to think this could be voluntary, especially if it's an adult.
But is this one of those cases?
There has to be something you can do.
As she spoke to me, I just had this overwhelming sensation, that it's something more to this.
2 days pass, and Kajavia is still missing. That is, until police respond to a 911 call and find a deceased woman matching her description.
My heart sank because I had to make that call.
Hello, Ms. Globe. Yeah, this is Sergeant Ball.
When we received the phone call, and that was it, they found Kajavia's body.
With a new love blossoming and a big promotion at work, 24-year-old Kajavia Globe appeared to have a bright future ahead of her.
By all accounts, Kajavia had everything going for her.
She's sort of living her best life.
But on December 14th, 2015, 2 days after Kajavia was reported missing, her family is devastated to learn that her body has been recovered.
Kajavia's boyfriend, John Black, had called her sister on Friday the 11th and said that she hadn't come home from work.
The family's been through hell. There was no explanation as to why she would suddenly take off, and then suddenly there's a body that's been found.
Now, with her body identified, homicide detectives must piece together what happened to Kajavia Globe and why.
The evidence techs take photos. We collect evidence from the trash can. There were dog hair fibers that were collected. There was also pillow fibers. It looked like the dog may have torn a pillow or a comforter apart. We also collected those fibers.
The can had been found in front of a clearly abandoned house.
They also checked the vacant house. The vacant house was boarded up, and they could see that no one had entered that house.
We conducted a canvass and spoke to the neighbors, asked what they may have saw or heard.
Unfortunately, detectives are unable to find any witnesses. Their hope now is that Kajavia's body might provide the answers they need.
Kajavia's body was transported to the medical examiner to see if they could determine a cause of death.
While they wait for the forensic evidence to be processed, their next step is to talk to Kajavia's grieving family, with a hope they might help generate some leads.
Was she having any trouble with anyone, maybe at work?
They had a surprise party for her promotion at work. And the day of her disappearance,
She didn't appear to have any problems or anything like that at her job.
Well, how are things with her boyfriend? Any problem?
John Black? Not that I noticed. He was the one that told us she was missing.
John was calling us, trying to find out where was Kajavia at.
She was supposed to be here hours ago.
he was very adamant on trying to find Kajavia.
When a woman goes missing, those closest are immediately suspects. The current husband or boyfriend or whomever that happens to be.
I thought that John had something to do with my sister's murder due to the fact that that was the man that was around her at the time.
Anybody else we should look at?
Kajavia's mother gives them the name of another man in her daughter's life, Kajavia's ex, Maxwell Brack.
Max was her first relationship. Max was Kajavia's first everything.
When I initially met Max, it was a good vibe. He was a good guy.
Yes, I like that one.
Yeah. He made my sister happy, and my sister was always there for him.
You love me, right?
You know I do. You don't want for me.
But Kajavia's family says that despite their relationship being strong, Max started showing a darker side that landed him in prison in 2011.
Maxwell was sentenced for 2 years on a gun charge. And once he was released, their relationship changed between him and Kajavia.
Her sister came to me and was expressing her feelings that she didn't like how Max talked to her sister.
He would demean her. He would talk to her like he was the dad instead of the boyfriend.
According to Kajavia's family, eventually the abuse allegedly became physical, and Kajavia had had enough.
Kajavia had finally left Max because she got tired of the fighting, the arguing. And she finally said, Mom, I'm going to leave him. And she left him.
Once that breakup happened, that's when they kind of went their separate ways.
And then she met John. She was just happy, full of joy.
Kajavia's mother says she had reached out to Max to find out if he'd seen Kajavia while she was still missing.
Just because they did have history.
I called Max, and Max was like, he haven't seen her.
Detectives now have two possible suspects, the ex-boyfriend and the new boyfriend.
Now we're looking at two individuals who may have acted or may have been involved in her death.
We'll be in touch.
Detectives assure Kajavia's family they'll find her killer and make interviewing the two men in Kajavia's life their top priority.
We started conducting our interviews, and we went out and spoke to John Black.
Tell us about the day Kajavia went missing.
She went to work, man. They threw her a party. She called me afterwards about 6:30. Said she had to run a few errands, but she never came home after that.
Any problems between you two?
No, man, I thought everything was good. Till I seen that video.
Video? What video?
John explains that when Kajavia went missing, he went through her cloud to see if she had posted any pictures or anything that would indicate where she had been. And that's when he found the video.
He found a video of her and Maxwell Brack having sex.
Detectives instantly suspect John may be hiding some facts about when he found the video, but they also wonder when it was made.
So you found this around the time she was missing?
Yes.
So she was cheating on you?
John Black provided us with that information that he suspected Kajavia was still sleeping with Maxwell Brack.
See that tattoo?
Detectives consider the possibility of a love triangle turned deadly, and that they may be face to face with Kajavia's killer.
Jealousy can be a powerful motive. With Kajavia being involved with both guys, maybe one of them let their jealousy get the best of them.
Detroit homicide detectives are investigating the murder of 24-year-old Kajavia Globe.
Police didn't know how she died, but they had multiple suspects on their radar. One is her ex-boyfriend, Max Brack. The other is her current live-in boyfriend, John Black.
Detectives are questioning John Black at his residence and have just learned Kajavia may have been cheating on him with Max.
John tells detectives he found out about Kajavia seeing Max again because of an explicit video he discovered.
When was the video made?
Recently.
How recent?
John says that he noticed Kajavia's new tattoo in the video, so it couldn't have been more than a few weeks old.
Kajavia has gone back to Max Brack. She's having sex with him. There's a history of violence there. Now they find out that this relationship is once again in play.
Detectives believe the video of Kajavia and Max surfacing so close to her death is not just a coincidence.
John said he found it while trying to help locate Kajavia when she was missing. But police have their doubts.
We thought maybe he was upset by that.
Detectives suggest perhaps John had flown into a jealous rage and killed Kajavia. But John claims that's simply not true.
Listen, I understand I got mad about the video. I love Kajavia. I would do anything for that woman. I seen us having kids. I seen us getting married. I loved her, man.
Detectives ask John if he has an alibi for the night Kajavia disappeared.
I was here, man, calling all of her family, trying to figure out exactly where she was, but she never showed up.
John was the one that called Kajavia's family, but his alibi is still flimsy.
Detectives end their interview with John Black, but he's not cleared from their suspect list just yet.
With any investigation, you have to follow a lead all the way until it ends. We had a couple of individuals who were in the suspect pool. We could not tell whether this was a crime of passion, whether this was a love triangle, whether this was some form of retaliation.
Back at the station, detectives look into the other man in Kajavia's life, Max Brack. They start with his arrest record.
Max had a pretty long rap sheet, including a weapons conviction where he served 2 years in prison.
We learned from Maxwell's criminal history that he had convictions for domestic violence and assault, which kind of piqued our interest.
From what we understood, this person was a violent person.
If Max was as dangerous as his record suggests, why would Kajavia keep seeing him?
She would say she wasn't talking to him anymore. She was done with him, but he will always find a way to pull her back in.
You love me, right?
You know I do.
He knew what to say. He knew what buttons to push to get her to reach back out for him.
After multiple attempts to find Kajavia's ex turn up empty-handed, detectives decide to put a bolo out for Max Brack.
Detectives need to talk to Max and find out what he knows. His name is coming up way too much.
In order to find out who killed Kajavia, detectives need to determine where she was the night of December 11th.
We conducted a financial transaction history for Kajavia's bank records. We found that there were some inaccuracies.
We learned that Kajavia's bank card had been used at a local ATM to withdraw money.
It was a withdrawal for $500, 8:03 p.m. on December the 11th.
That is a lot of money to be withdrawn, and it's right around the time that Kajavia stopped answering her phone.
Detectives waste no time retrieving the security footage from the bank.
We requested video footage for that transaction and in fact showed Kajavia Globe's vehicle.
However, upon closer inspection, detectives make a troubling discovery.
I think we got it.
Kajavia is nowhere to be seen in the footage.
The video footage actually showed an individual with a mask withdrawing money from the ATM.
You have a man in a skeleton mask withdrawing $500 from Kajavia's account in Kajavia's car and no sign of Kajavia.
Detectives feel confident that whoever accessed that ATM is the one who killed Kajavia.
This guy knew her passcode to her bank account.
Now detectives just have to determine who is the man behind the mask.
Again, there are only two people on detectives' radar who had this kind of access to Kajavia's personal life: John Black and Max Bragg.
Detectives investigating the murder of Kajavia Globe have uncovered a startling piece of evidence.
Police recovered surveillance video showing a man wearing a skeleton mask, withdrawing $500 from Kajavia's account, and even driving her car.
Police assumed that whoever was wearing the mask was most likely the one responsible for her death.
Detectives have their suspect list narrowed down to two men, Maxwell Brack and John Black.
Detectives have spoken to Kajavia's current boyfriend, John Black, but now they need to speak with Max Bragg.
While police have yet to locate Max Brack, they are able to locate Kajavia's vehicle.
It was seen down in our Brightmoor area in the west side of Detroit.
They found a purse in the back seat. And in the purse were credit cards that belonged to Kajavia.
We had learned that Kajavia had recently been promoted at her job. And when her vehicle was found, there were balloons inside.
But it's not what police find inside the vehicle that makes them take note. It's where the vehicle is found.
Her vehicle was located just a few blocks from where her body was found.
Detectives now have one more piece of the puzzle, but they don't know where she was killed.
While CSIs process Kajavia's car for physical evidence, detectives subpoena phone records and begin combing through them.
Phones are just like a fingerprint in some cases because they tell us where you were, when you were there, how long you stayed.
What they find confirms some of what they already know.
Kajavia had been in frequent contact with Max. There was almost no drop-off in her communication with him.
When the family talked to Max, he stated that he didn't see her nor talk to her.
While the phone records point to the guilt of one of the men in Kajavia's life, they also prove the innocence of another.
The phone record showed that John Black was home the entire night. He was just a concerned boyfriend.
Hey, it's John. Is Kajavia
By all accounts, John Black, desperate for answers, he was contacting her family.
I've always been a stand-up guy, so I had to stand my ground because I didn't do anything. And if I have to face these questions, it is what it is. I didn't do that.
In fact, John had hoped to soon marry Kajavia and start a family.
I definitely saw myself marrying Kajavia in the future. It was just a matter of when, you know.
Confident John Black is not their killer, detectives are now ready to move on to their next suspect.
Based on the phone records, we were able to rule him out. So Maxwell is suspect number one on our radar.
Once we figured out that that was his number in her call log and him saying that he have not contacted Kajavia in a long time, at that point, I knew that Maxwell had something to do with it.
A closer inspection of Max's records gives detectives further proof that he was likely Kajavia's killer.
Maxwell Brack was in the area where her car was dumped, and he's also where her body was dumped at the time of the crime.
What about the ATM? It pinged in this area right here around 8 p.m.
That is not enough to get a warrant yet. We still need eyewitnesses that may help.
On December 16th, 2015, 2 days after Kajavia's body was found, detectives receive a surprising phone call.
We were alerted that there was a witness that potentially had information.
Kim Wilson, who lives on the street where Kajavia was found, arrives at the station to give a statement.
Expressed that there was some information that you may have.
I might be able to help you guys.
On December the 14th, she observed an individual move the garbage can from his property to across the street to be picked up.
She tells police that she had seen this guy with this dumpster and he was sort of pacing back and forth. And then he ends up taking it and put it in front of the abandoned house.
Well, it was this guy taking this garbage can across to a vacant house, but he kept going back and forth.
The person who had moved the trash bin to the street and was standing around, and then also moved the trash can to the rear of the vacant home.
She gave us a description and where he lived.
You recognize him if you saw a picture of him?
I might be able to.
Detectives pulled photographs of some random men matching the description she gave, as well as a file photo for Max Brack.
Right. But what we're going to do is, I'm going to just show you a group picture.
Okay.
And you just go through them. You take as much time as you need, but if you recognize the person in the suit, just let me know, all right?
And she positively identified Maxwell Brack as the person who had moved the trash can where she was found.
Thanks to Kim Wilson's statement, detectives now have enough evidence to arrest Maxwell Brack.
But she was very helpful and instrumental in getting a warrant signed for Maxwell Brack.
They run the address given by Kim Wilson, but Max Brack is not listed as a resident. The home belongs to a woman named Cheryl Wolford.
So now detectives have a new name in the mix. Who is this woman, and what is her connection to Max?
Detectives immediately head to the house, prepared to take Max into custody. But when they arrive, there's no sign of him.
Can I help you?
Hello, ma'am. We have a warrant for Maxwell Brack. Is he here?
No. Is this about Kajavia?
Can we come in? So you were aware that her body was found across from here?
It is revealed at that point that her boyfriend is Maxwell Brack.
Could Cheryl Wolford have been involved in Kajavia's murder?
If Kajavia was cheating on John with Max, then that meant Max was cheating on Cheryl with Kajavia.
At this point, she's a possible suspect.
Detroit detectives now have an eyewitness that identified Max Brack as the man who left Kajavia Globe's body in a garbage container.
Maxwell Brack was Kajavia Globe's ex-boyfriend. However, they were still lovers.
Kajavia's body was found across from a house where Max Brack was staying. They have a witness saying he moved her body, but they're still not sure how she died.
Detectives have also found a potential new accomplice in the crime, Max's girlfriend, Cheryl Wolford.
Did you know her?
No. I just knew that her and Max were still hooking up.
How did you find out?
Yeah, I just found a video of the two of them.
The video showed Kajavia having sex with Maxwell Brack.
The fact that she not only knew about Max and Kajavia's relationship, but saw it firsthand must have been devastating. It's also a red flag for detectives.
We believe that she may have been slighted by that and upset. And due to the proximity of where her body was found and she lived there, she was obviously a suspect to us.
Were you involved in this?
No. I was at work that night. Here's my card. You can check with my supervisor.
And what about Max? Think he's able to do something like this?
Can we search your home?
Yes.
Detectives proceed to search Cheryl's home. Although they don't find obvious signs of a crime scene, they don't leave empty-handed.
We found multiple pieces of evidence that were consistent with evidence that was in the trash container.
Cheryl Walford had a dog, and detectives knew that there were dog hairs as well as fibers from a pillow found with Kajavia's body.
We're going to have to take a sample of this.
Okay.
Detectives take samples of the hair and fibers for forensic analysis.
With no blood evidence or proof that Cheryl was involved, detectives can't arrest her, but they still need to check her alibi to make sure she's telling the truth.
Upon returning to the station, detectives are met with surprising news. Max Brack has been apprehended.
Maxwell Brack did not come in voluntarily. Our headquarters surveillance tracked him out in Jackson, Michigan, and he was arrested.
Kajavia's family is relieved to hear the news as well.
They told me that we got him, Miss Globe. We have Max. And I was just start thanking God.
He was returned back to our Detroit detention center, at which point myself and Detective Crosby conducted an interview of Mr. Brack.
When detectives sit down with Max, he doesn't appear to be concerned that he is at the center of a homicide investigation.
He's a guy that loves to hear himself talk. He's clearly a narcissist.
He's boasting about how he's used this woman for that, uses that woman for this. He pretty much kind of painted himself a womanizer.
We know you're still involved with Kajavia Globe. We have a witness who saw you move the body.
We tracked your phone.
So why'd you kill her?
Got bad intel, man. Why would I kill her if I'm still hooking up with her?
He denied. And in most of those denials, our evidence refuted almost everything that he said. He played a victim role during that interview.
I don't know what y'all think happened, but I ain't do it. And I ain't saying nothing else until I speak to my lawyer.
Detectives conclude their interview and send Max back to holding.
He hired a lawyer, and his lawyer stated that he was not going to provide a statement. So we continued on with our investigation and building our case.
After their interview with Max, detectives follow up on Cheryl Wolford's alibi for the night of the murder.
She stated that she was at work that night and didn't get home until well after detectives believed Kajavia was killed.
We confirmed the information that she provided, and that's how we were able to clear her.
With another suspect cleared and without a strong motive or cause of death, detectives feel the pressure to build their case against Max.
This was the only time that I have been involved with a homicide investigation where the cause of death has been unknown.
However, when the lab results come in for the items found at Cheryl Wolford's home, detectives believe they now have enough evidence to file murder charges.
We found multiple pieces of evidence that were consistent with evidence that was in the trash container. We sent all of that evidence off to our lab, which it was confirmed that those items were a match, even the dog hair.
Detectives submit their case to the prosecutor's office. 2 months after Kajavia Globe's body was found, Max Brack is charged with open murder.
The evidence pointed to Max, but without a cause of death, they could not file first or second-degree murder charges.
With such an unusual case, will the prosecution be able to make the charges stick, or will Max walk away a free man?
Because they didn't have a cause of death, I think he felt confident that he wouldn't be attached to it.
Max was being very arrogant. I feel like he think he had it in a bag, like he fooled everyone, and that he was going to get off.
I hate this man. This man has destroyed my family.
I feel like Kajavia stayed with Max because her heart was so forgiving. She could always forgive and overlook a situation to where she had overlooked Maxwell's abuse, to where she felt that she could possibly get through to him, that he will eventually stop. But it never stopped, and it took her to her death.
In August of 2016, prosecutors prepared their case against Max Brack for the murder of Kajavia Globe. But Max maintains his innocence.
Max claimed that even though he and Kajavia were still lovers, that didn't mean he killed her.
He said they had this sexual relationship, and that's all it was.
Maxwell told us he would have no reason to hurt or kill Kajavia.
Despite the fact that he was engaged in a sexual relationship with Kajavia at the time of her death, despite the fact that her body is found across the street from where he's living, he says he has nothing to do with this.
When Max's trial begins in late August, emotions run high as his defense begins to poke holes in the prosecution's case.
With his attorney.
Even with all the evidence linking Max to Kajavia's body, not knowing how she died really jeopardized the case.
They didn't have a cause of death.
Prosecutors also lack a clear-cut motive.
Why did this happen? Why would he kill someone he claimed to love? And we can't ask Kajavia what happened. And Max Brack is never going to admit to what happened.
I believe trying to determine the motive was one of the hardest things in this case, but everything just kept drawing them back together in this combustible relationship that eventually exploded.
Prosecutors and Kajavia's family have a theory about what happened the night Kajavia died.
The prosecution believed that Kajavia went to see Max at Cheryl's home while Cheryl was at work. They assert that Kajavia went there to end the relationship. That's when Max flew into a rage and killed her.
I don't want to do this anymore.
You said that once before already.
We're done, Max. Stop it! Get off me!
He knew that he couldn't control her. He couldn't get her to just pull up whenever he said he needed something. She wasn't at his beck and call no more.
It was, if I can't have you, nobody can.
Despite the holes in the prosecution's case, Max's demeanor in court may have done the most damage to his defense.
When he walked into the courtroom, he kind of was just arrogant. He had this look on his face like he knew that he was innocent and he didn't have anything to do with it. He honestly thought that he was clear.
On August 31st of 2016, the jury returns their verdict.
In an open murder trial, the jury can convict on a charge that fits the evidence presented. In this case, there wasn't enough for first degree, but second-degree murder still carries substantial prison time.
They found Max guilty of second-degree murder.
It's the news Kajavia Globe's family has been waiting for.
I was a sigh of relief. We are going to get justice for my sister.
At sentencing, the presiding judge makes sure Kajavia's family gets exactly that.
The judge gave him 70 years to 100 years behind bars.
He basically showed no emotion, and I believe that played a big role in why he was found guilty by the jury. And also, during the sentencing, he chuckled at the judge's sentencing.
And the last 10 years of that 70-year sentence, that's for the smile.
That was very powerful to see him just kind of laugh it off.
He will be there for the rest of his life.
It's just a sad situation. Both lives are done. It's like he's gonna sit in prison the rest of his life. That's not a life.
Before Max is taken away, Kajavia's mother makes a powerful statement to the court.
He knew I didn't like him. When he put my baby in that dumpster, that was something to me because I always told him in his face he was trash. I hate this man. This man has destroyed my family. This man has took something from me that he can never give it back. Never. It was me and my 4 daughters. No. And we don't have that in our life no more.
I still have a broken heart, and I never will learn how to cope with this because this is something that eats at me all the time.
Maybe one day he can say and own up to it that he did do that, but I don't really want to hear his answer because inevitably you still took a life for whatever selfish reason you wanted to do that for.
You never get closure. You just had to learn to live, to deal with it. That's it.
As for John Black, the man who hoped to one day marry Kajavia, he too must find a way to carry on.
I gotta put the pieces back together. But it's not really about me in this situation. It's more about her family.
However, even in their grief, Kajavia's family hopes that her story will save others from the same tragic fate.
No one should belittle you. No one should make you feel less than them. And if you're going through it, get away, get out.
Leave and don't look back. Because somebody loves you, they're not going to hurt you. They're going to protect you. Period.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Beautiful, golden orange. The chemicals in the hairspray created a barrier that prevented the iodine from reaching the paper starch. Not white rain, he noted. To flaky. Aquanet has the grip, the shine, the protection. Albert smiled. It was a predatory smile. He had defeated the first line of defense with a $3 can of hairspray. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a ghost in the machine of the American economy. Chapter 3, The Pawn's Opening. David Goldberg was a man who lived in the margins of Lawndale. He was a longtime friend of Albert's, a man who appreciated the quiet life, but was always plagued by the lack of funds to enjoy it. He arrived at Albert's townhouse one Tuesday afternoon, expecting a game of Sicilian defense. David stopped in the kitchen doorway, the scent of chemical adhesive hitting him like a wall. Why is there a rack of hundreds in your oven? Low heat, Albert explained, not looking up from a specialized paper cutter. It sets the ink. It gives it that slightly toasted, circulated feel. Take one. Dave, tell me what you see. David reached out and picked up a bill. It was warm, like it had just come out of a dryer. He ran his thumb over Ben Franklin's coat. He felt the ridges Albert had simulated through a clever layering of digital ink. He held it up to the light and saw the ghost of the watermark staring back. Is this real? David whispered. It's better than real. Dave, Albert said, finally looking up. His eyes were burning with a terrifying pride. The real stuff is old. It's clunky. This is digital. This is the future. David felt a cold sweat on the back of his neck. You're going to get us killed, Al. Or worse, sent back to the yard. You remember the smell of that place, the gray walls, and the way the sun only hits the yard for an hour a day. No one is getting caught, Albert said, standing up and towering over his friend. He walked over to David and put a hand on his shoulder. The Secret Service is looking for guys with offset printing presses and engraved plates. They're looking for the wolf for some international syndicate. They aren't looking for a guy with an HP, inkjet, and a can of Aquanet. Albert leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I need someone I can trust to help with the assembly, the gluing, the cutting, the hairspray. $60 an hour. Dave. Cash. Real cash at first. Then whatever you want. David looked at the money in the oven. It represented a life he'd never had. No more scraping by. No more dirt for pennies. What's the plan for getting it out there? David asked. The drug model, Albert said simply. Pyramid distribution. Chapter 4. The broker and the best friend. While David Goldberg handled the assembly, Albert needed someone who could bridge the gap between his laboratory and the streets. He needed someone who knew how to move product without attracting the wrong kind of attention. He turned to Paul McCory. Paul and Albert had been best friends since they were 17. They were the kind of friends who knew each other's silences as well as their voices. Paul had always stayed on the edges of Albert's previous dirt, but this was different. This wasn't bank fraud. This was alchemy. Al, you're playing with fire, Paul said, sitting in Albert's new living room, surrounded by the hum of 3 synchronized printers. Fire is what cooks the food, Paul, Albert replied. I'm offering you the broker position. You buy from me for 15. You sell it to the street for 30. You don't even have to leave your car. You just meet the right people. And you let the money work for you. Paul looked at Albert. He saw the cockiness, the intelligence, and the absolute certainty. For a long time, Paul had been a law-abiding man, but the sight of the Mercedes parked outside Albert's townhouse was a powerful argument. All right, Paul said, But I'm not doing dirt with anyone else. Just you. The distribution chain was complete. Paul McCory and Troy Stroud became the twin engines of Albert's economy. Troy, a man with a long-standing relationship with Albert from their time in the system, handled the darker side of the business, the gangs. Chapter 5, The Pyramid of Shadows. In the streets of Los Angeles, the H to H38 notes became a currency of their own. Selling counterfeit cash worked exactly like selling drugs, a trade many LA gangs were already intimately familiar with. Only take one at a time. The gang members were instructed by Troy Stroud. You go into a Target, a Macy's, a Walmart. You buy a candy bar, a pack of socks. You give them the 100. You get $90 in clean change. That's your profit. Doing business with gangs ensured secrecy. In that world, ratting wasn't just a breach of trust. It was a death sentence. The hierarchy of the pyramid kept the truth buried deep. The kids spending the bills at the mall didn't know Troy Stroud. Troy Stroud didn't let the gangs know about the townhouse in Lawndale. And nobody, absolutely nobody, knew the name Albert Talton. By late 2006, the H to H38 notes were no longer a trickle. They were a tsunami. They were appearing in grocery stores in Ohio, gas stations in Florida, and high-end boutiques in New York. Albert Talton was no longer the man in the grease-stained rag. He was a king. He moved into a comfortable townhouse in Lawndale, but his eyes were on the hills. He bought a home for his girlfriend, Allison Sewell, in the expensive LA suburb of Woodland Hills. He filled it with luxury, including 7 flat-screen TVs, one for every room, even the kitchen. Then came the cars, to Mercedes-Benzes, and finally, the crowning achievement, a silver Aston Martin Vantage. It was a $110,000 piece of British engineering that hummed with the sound of pure, unadulterated success. Now, where is all this coming from? Allison asked one night, looking at the silver car in the driveway. I'm a consultant. Baby, Albert lied with a smile. I'm consulting for the government. Chapter 6, The Blue and the Red. In the LA field office of the U.S. Secret Service, Special Agent Matthew Mayo was staring at a map of Los Angeles. It was covered in red pins, each one representing a reported H to H38 counterfeit. It's centered in the South Bay, Mayo said. He was a man of logic and persistence, the kind of agent who didn't mind chasing a needle in a haystack as long as he knew the needle was there. Forensics says it's inkjet. Special Agent Christopher Toledo added, but the quality is above average. He's simulating the watermark and the thread internally. This isn't a kid in a bedroom. This is an operation. They had a problem. Digital counterfeit operations were almost invisible. Unlike the old days of heavy printing presses and engraved plates that required huge amounts of power and space, a digital shop could be anywhere. A living room, a bedroom, even the back seat of a car. We need a break, Mayo said. We're arresting the passers, but they're all gang affiliated. They're terrified of talking. They'd rather take the rap for a single bill than end up in a ditch. The break finally came on January 14th, 2008. A man was arrested at an H&M store in Los Angeles. He had tried to use 10 of the H to H3800s. He wasn't a gang member. He was a civilian, a man with a clean record who had been tempted by the promise of easy money. In the interrogation room, Mayo turned up the heat. You're not a criminal, Mayo said, his voice quiet. But you're looking at federal prison. Your family, your job, it's all gone unless you tell me where you got these. The man looked at the 10 bills on the table. He looked at Mayo. He cracked. He gave them a name, Troy Stroud. Chapter 7, The Popeye Sting. The Secret Service began a relentless surveillance of Troy Stroud. They watched his $1 million home. They followed his white Range Rover. One afternoon, Agent Mayo followed Stroud to a Popeye's chicken drive-thru. I'm going in, Mayo told his team over the radio. He identified himself to the manager and stood just out of sight. Stroud handed a $20 bill to the cashier. The manager immediately passed it to Mayo. Mayo ran his thumb over it. It was an H to H38 $20 bill. Give him his change, Mayo ordered. Let the investigation continue. They didn't want Stroud. They wanted the printer. They knew Stroud was soup to nuts. He was selling to informants and passing the bills himself, but he wasn't the man making them. They executed a sneak and peek warrant on Stroud's home. It was a controversial tactic that allowed them to search without the suspect's knowledge. They picked the locks, searched every room, and found nothing. No printers, no ink. He's not the one, Mayo realized. Then luck intervened. Stroud received a call. The Wire picked it up. He was meeting the man at a townhouse in Lawndale. Chapter 8. The Stakeout at the Comfort Inn. The Secret Service rented a room at a hotel directly across from the Lawndale townhouse. For 18 hours a day, agents sat in the dark, peering through high-powered lenses. They saw Albert Talton. He looks like a ghost, an agent whispered. They watched Albert wash his garbage cans with meticulous care. They saw the orange Mercedes belonging to Paul McCory. They saw David Goldberg arrive with his red backpack. He's taking out the trash, Mayo said. As soon as the trash hit the curb, it was public domain. The Secret Service snatched it under the cover of darkness. Inside, they hit pay dirt, scrappings of newsprint with currency images, empty HP ink cartridges, and a receipt from a Staples office supply store. They checked the Staples rewards card. It showed Albert Talton had been buying massive amounts of ink and paper. He was racking up rewards points for his illegal activities. He's cocky, Mayo said, looking at the data. He thinks he's invisible. On April 30th, they followed Albert to Paper Mart. They saw him load 3 bales of newsprint into his car. It was enough to print $1 million in counterfeit cash. Chapter 9, The Hammer Falls. May 8th, 2008. The sun was barely over the horizon when the Secret Service tactical teams moved in. Albert was in his garage, the smell of Aquanet hairspray thick in the air. He was hanging sheets of hundreds on a drying rack. CRASH. The front door was splintered by a battering ram. agents swarmed the house. Albert saw the laser sights on his chest. He saw Agent Mayo, the man who had been chasing him for 2 years. Albert didn't fight. He went to the ground, his face pressed against the floor of his multi-million-dollar factory. Caught you red-handed, Albert, Mayo said. In the garage, $162,000 in completed notes were drying. In the office, nearly $1.4 million in partially completed bills were stacked high. On the computer screen, a high-resolution Benjamin Franklin stared back at them. Goldberg confessed immediately. I was just playing chess. He tried to lie before realizing the game was over. Albert, however, was different. He was proud. Chapter 10, The Pride of the Architect. In the interrogation room, Albert Talton didn't act like a broken man. He spoke with the enthusiasm of an inventor. I tried White Rain, Albert told Mayo, but it didn't work as well. Aquanet. That's the secret. It tricks the pen every time. He explained the sandwich method. He explained how he had deconstructed the Bose speaker to understand bass, and then deconstructed the dollar to understand greed. He had made roughly $800,000 in profit, but the economic downturn had wiped out his investments. He was a king who had lost his kingdom just as the palace was stormed. I beat the system for 2 years, Albert said. I drove an Aston Martin. I lived the dream. It was a perverted version of the dream, Albert, Mayo replied. Epilogue, the silent currency. The sentencing was harsh. 9 years in federal prison. Albert's cars were repossessed. His flat screens were sold. His houses were gone. But the legacy of Albert Talton lived on. In the final tally, he had circulated $7.2 million of worthless money. His bills had reached all 50 states and 9 foreign countries. Even today, a store in a small town might receive a $100 bill that feels right, looks right, and passes the pen. Somewhere in a vault in Washington, D.C., a stack of H to H38 bills remains locked away, a testament to a man who thought he could out-engineer the American government with an inkjet printer and a can of hairspray. Albert Talton is now a number in a system he once tried to hack. But for a brief, shining moment, he was the ghost in the machine, and Ben Franklin is still smiling somewhere in the pockets of the world. The age to alchemy, the rise and fall of Albert Talton, a novelized account of the largest digital counterfeiting ring in American history. Prologue, The Specimen Vault. Washington, D.C. was breathing heavy under a humid summer shroud, a thick blanket of heat that made the marble monuments seem to sweat. But inside the high-security facility of the United States Secret Service, the world was different. Here, the air was recycled, clinical, and bone-chillingly cold, designed to preserve the integrity of evidence that dated back to the Civil War. Kelly Harris stepped through the reinforced steel doors of the specimen vault. It was more than a room. It was a cathedral of failed ambitions, a place where history was recorded in ink, cotton fiber, and the broken dreams of desperate men. Along the walls, thousands of steel drawers held forgeries that had once threatened to buckle the knees of the American economy. Some were crude, hand-drawn sketches from the mid-1800s, relics from an era when half the money in circulation was fake. Others were masterwork supernotes produced by foreign state actors using million-dollar engraved steel plates and specialized intaglio presses. But Kelly wasn't there to study the classics. She was looking for a new kind of ghost. A ghost that didn't use plates. A ghost that didn't need a basement full of heavy machinery. She pulled out a tray and looked at a $100 bill labeled strain H to H38. To the naked eye, it was Benjamin Franklin, stoic and regal, staring back with an expression of unwavering authority. The paper had the right snap. The colors had the right muted richness. Even the security thread seemed to shimmer behind the fibers. But when Kelly slid the bill under the high-powered microscope, the illusion shattered. The solid lines of Franklin's portrait dissolved into a chaotic, vibrating sea of tiny cyan, magenta, and yellow dots. Inkjet, she whispered, her voice echoing in the silent vault. It was an insult to the centuries-old craft of engraving. Yet it was a miracle of modern audacity. Somewhere in the sprawling, sun-drenched suburbs of Los Angeles, a man was printing millions of dollars using technology intended for middle school book reports and family vacation photos. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a disruptor. He had turned the world's most powerful currency into a downloadable file. And he was winning. Chapter 1, The Inglewood Engineer. Albert Talton never liked the sound of a ticking clock. To him, the rhythmic tick-tock of a standard office wasn't just time passing. It was a slow death, a funeral march for the soul. He was a man who looked at the world as a series of interlocking systems. And he was convinced that most people were merely cogs in a machine they didn't understand. Inglewood, California, in the late 80s, was a place defined by its edges. They called it Inglewood, always up to no good. A neighborhood where survival was a talent and the hustle was the only language spoken fluently. While his peers were joining gangs for protection or status, carving out territories with blood and ink, Albert stayed in his garage. He didn't care about turf. He cared about how things worked. One stifling afternoon, a childhood friend pulled up in a tricked-out sedan. The air vibrated before the car even turned the corner. Check out the bass. Al, it's a custom Bose system. The salesman said you can't replicate this. Said the engineering in the air chambers is some top secret NASA level stuff. Albert didn't say a word. He walked over and placed his palms against the trunk. He felt the frequency, the way the air moved in precise, violent pulses. He didn't hear music. He heard a mechanical equation. 3 days later, that Bose speaker was sitting in 100 pieces on Albert's workbench. He had dissected it with the precision of a surgeon. He studied the cone material, the magnetic flux, the specific geometry of the base reflex port. He didn't see secret engineering. He saw logic. It's just physics, Albert muttered to himself, the blue light of his garage lamp casting long shadows against the walls. A week later, he had built a set of custom speakers from scrap plywood generic drivers, and hand-wound copper coils. When he turned them on, the windows of his garage didn't just rattle, they threatened to shatter. The sound was deeper, cleaner, and more efficient than the original. He hadn't just copied the Bose system, he had optimized it for the local environment. "You're a genius, Al," his friend said, shaking his head in awe as the bass hit him in the chest like a physical blow. "You could be an engineer at NASA. For real." Albert wiped a smudge of grease from his forehead. "NASA doesn't pay enough to live in the world I want to see." He enrolled in electrical engineering, but the classroom felt like another prison. The professor spoke in theories that Albert had already mastered by touch. He wanted the application. He wanted the reward. He began doing dirt, small-time financial schemes, forged checks, bank fraud. He was an artist of the loophole. He treated the banking system like a poorly coded program that just needed the right input to spit out a prize. But even the best engineers make mistakes. The law caught up, and Albert spent his 20s and early 30s in and out of the system detours that only served to sharpen his focus. In the quiet of a prison cell, he realized his fundamental error. He had been playing with other people's money. There were trails, victims, and ledgers. To truly be free, he realized he didn't need to steal money. He needed to be the money. Chapter 2. The Boss's Blunder. The air in the Lawndale Body Shop was thick with the scent of Bondo, burnt rubber, and the metallic tang of fresh paint. Albert was out on parole, his world reduced to the rhythmic sanding of a rusted-out 1998 Camry. It was the straight life, and it felt like a cage without bars. His boss, a man named Henderson, whose face was permanently etched with the stress of overhead costs, walked into the bay holding a crisp $100 bill between two fingers as if it were a piece of rotten fruit. "Look at this, Al. Some kid passed this at the register this morning. Just found out at the bank. $100. Gone. My profit for the whole damn day." Albert wiped his dusty hands on a rag and took the bill. He held it up to the harsh fluorescent lights of the shop. He felt the texture. It was waxy, lifeless. He looked at the printing. It was blurry. The fine lines of the Treasury seal bleeding into the background. The watermark of Franklin looked like a crude caricature drawn by a tired child. This is garbage, Henderson, Albert said, a smirk playing on his lips. Whoever made this wasn't even trying. Tell me about it. Henderson sighed, snatching the bill back. It's a sick joke. But hey, that's the world, right? Everyone's trying to get something for nothing. Albert didn't hear the rest of the conversation. He was staring at the bay door, his mind already racing. A thought began to germinate in the fertile, restless soil of his intellect. It wasn't a criminal thought, not at first. It was a technical challenge. I could do this better. The phrase echoed in his head, synchronized with the rhythmic swish-swish of his sandpaper. He didn't see the United States Secret Service or the power of the Federal Reserve. He saw a problem of high-fidelity replication. If a $200 printer could put an image on a page, and that page could fool the sensory perception of a human being in a fast-paced retail environment, then the entire financial system was merely a hardware vulnerability waiting to be exploited. That evening, Albert didn't go home to his parole-mandated curfew. He stopped at a local big box electronics store. He bypassed the professional-grade equipment and went straight to the consumer aisle. He bought a Hewlett-Packard all-in-one printer scanner copier. Price tag, $189.99 plus tax. He set it up on his kitchen table, the plastic casing smelling of new electronics and ozone. He took a genuine $100 bill, one of the few he had left from his meager paycheck, and placed it on the glass. Scan. The light bar moved with a mechanical hum. A digital eye devouring the intricacies of the most protected document on Earth. On his monitor, Benjamin Franklin appeared in 1200 DPI resolution. Now, Albert whispered, his eyes reflecting the white glow of the screen. Let's see what you're really made of. Chapter 3, The Chemistry of Fraud. The first 100 attempts were catastrophic failures. Albert discovered quickly that the paper used by the Treasury was his greatest enemy. Genuine U.S. currency is a textile blend of 75% cotton and 25% linen. It has a snap when you flick it. It has a sole that survives being washed in a jeans pocket. Albert's inkjet copies on standard bond paper were limp, gray, and smelled of cheap ink. He became a ghost in the office supply stores of the South Bay. He spent weeks feeling the textures of different reams, testing the drag of his thumb across surfaces while the clerks were busy. He tried parchment, vellum, high rag content resume paper, and even silk blends. None of them had the right feel. Then he had a breakthrough that would make him a legend in the specimen vault. He realized that if he couldn't find the paper, he would have to engineer it. He discovered a specific type of recycled newsprint, very thin, slightly porous, and with a natural yellowish tint that mimicked the look of currency that had been in circulation for a few months. But it was too thin. Double ply, he realized. He decided to print the front of the bill on one sheet and the back on another. He would then bond them together with a specialized adhesive. This wasn't just a solution for the thickness. It was an opportunity for a masterpiece. Between the two layers, he began to experiment with internal security features. He used a silver metallic pen to draw a thin line where the security thread should be. He used a light gray wash to sketch a mirror image of the watermark on the inside of the paper. When the two sheets were glued together and held up to a light, the shadow of the thread and the watermark appeared to be inside the fibers, exactly where they belonged. But there was still the pen test. Every retail clerk in America was trained to use those amber-colored iodine detection pens. If the iodine hit starch-based paper, it reacted and turned black. If it hit cotton, it stayed yellow. Albert's newsprint turned black instantly. He became a kitchen table chemist. He tried starches, bleaches, pH balancers, and industrial coatings. He spent hours in the laundry and beauty aisles of the supermarket, reading labels for chemical compounds. One night, he watched his girlfriend, Allison, preparing for a night out. She was clouding the room with a heavy mist of hairspray. Does that stuff create a waterproof seal? He asked, his eyes narrowing. It keeps my hair in place during a convertible ride. Ow! It's basically plastic in a can. Why? Albert snatched the can of Aquanet. He went to his lab and sprayed a sheet of treated newsprint. He let it dry under a heat lamp. The paper felt stiff, slightly waxy, and remarkably like the surface of a fresh treasury note. He took the detection pen and swiped it across the surface. The line stayed bright, vivid, amber yellow. Albert felt a surge of adrenaline that made his previous crimes look like child's play. He had fooled the pen. He had cracked the code of the tactile world. He had turned a 5-cent sheet of newsprint into a $100 promise. I'm not just an engineer anymore, he whispered as the printer started its next cycle. I'm an alchemist. Chapter 4, The Distribution Chain. An empire cannot be run by a single man. And Albert knew that his greatest risk wasn't the police, it was the point of sale. He was the architect. He didn't want to be the one handing over the fake bill to a suspicious teenager at a Burger King. He started with David Goldberg. Goldberg was an old friend, a man who played chess with the patience of a statue, but lacked the vision to create his own board. One afternoon, Goldberg walked into Albert's townhouse in Lawndale. The air was sweltering, and the oven was humming. What are you doing? Al, baking. You don't bake. I'm setting the ink, Albert replied, opening the oven door. Inside, on professional-grade cookie sheets, were hundreds of $100 bills. Albert was using controlled heat to age the newsprint, letting the fibers contract around the ink to give the paper that crisp, used feel that only comes from being handled. Goldberg's jaw dropped. Is that real? It's better than real. Dave, it's mine. And if you help me with the glue process, $60 an hour, it can be yours too. Goldberg didn't even ask about the risk. Where do I sit? As the volume grew, Albert realized he needed a buffer. He looked to his past men he had met in the system who understood the value of silence and the structure of a hierarchy. He enlisted Troy Stroud and Paul McCory. Albert treated his operation like a pharmaceutical wholesaler. He was the manufacturer. He sold his bills to Stroud and McCory, his Tier 1 brokers, for roughly $15 per $100. McCory and Stroud, in turn, would sell the money to Tier 2 distributors, often local gang leaders or street-level hustlers, for $25 or $30. By the time the bill reached the passer, the person actually walking into the store it was being bought for $50. The system was a perfect pyramid of greed. If a street-level passer got caught at a Target, they only knew the low-level dealer who sold them the cash. That dealer only knew the broker. No one knew Albert. No one knew the address of the townhouse in Lawndale. One bill at a time, Albert instructed his brokers with the sternness of ACO. Don't get greedy. Buy a pack of batteries, a t-shirt, a bottle of water. Get the change in clean currency. That change is our profit. The money began to flow into the Los Angeles basin like a digital virus. At first, it was a trickle a few thousand a month. But as Albert refined his H2 process, the volume exploded. By 2006, the H2 H38 strain was appearing in every major retailer in Southern California. Albert Talton was no longer a police sanding cars. Anka tribe fan Matt Bongma Hukin Matnan Kintieng. At Bongma GGC Ngwai DGeng DY Imik in Vaseku Engao. Chapter 5. The View from the Top. Success didn't just change Albert's bank account. It changed his perception of gravity. He felt untouchable. He moved out of the cramped apartment and into a sleek, modern townhouse in Lawndale. He didn't just buy a car, he bought a statement. The silver Aston Martin sat in his driveway, its polished surface reflecting the California sun.